2. So then, what major entitlement program or programs would you eliminate to demonstrate a fiscal rollback of the federal budget? What entitlement programs would you eliminate? Mr. Bainey, we'll start with you.
How about all of them? I'd love to go in there and just totally rip 20-30% of the budget out. Realistically, that's not going to happen, but we must stop the spending, just like in our personal lives. In my business is down 60%. My paycheck went down. We had to go into my home budget and figure out where we can cut costs. And one simple thing we did was we cut premium cable. We're now back to basic cable. Certainly, we can take a look at our budget at the federal level, and we can find those extra cuts that we can make. At a minimum, I'm looking for a 1% cut across the board. That's a very simple start. It's momentum in the right direction. In a tough time that we have an administration that won't even support that kind of a thing. But we must make some kind of start of pushing the ball back, of pulling back the expenses. We must cut the budget.
So you don't have an entitlement program specifically that you'd like to cut?
We're going to cut them all.
All right. Mr. Sussman.
I agree. I think we do need to cut and look at everything. Everything needs to be on the table right now. Just as we went into office back in 2004, state government, we were a bloated government. Federal government is out of control. I think one thing we could start with is the employee salaries. The federal government employee salary is $70,000. What is the average wage here in Indiana? It's less than $40,000. We could start right there. I think that we could also do like we did here in Indiana, is we cut bureaucracies 20% across the board. But you know what? You have to have the right people in the right place for us to get that done. We had department heads coming in and saying, we can do with less. All of us as Americans are going to have to say, how can I do with less? Because we're sinking ourselves further and further into debt. I think also that we have to, our military spending is only 1/5 of our national budget. How our priorities are out of whack when only our military is earning 1/5 of the budget. That means we're spending 4/5 on other things that are not priorities for the national government.
Mr. Hostet.
What you're going to hear today is a lot of rhetoric from a lot of people, including former office holders, who talk about cutting earmarks when in fact his friend John McCain in the last debate went on national television and the first utterance out of his mouth is, we need to spend $300 billion of the $785 billion stimulus on buying bad mortgages. That type of reckless spending is the type of reckless spending that I voted against constantly in the United States House of Representatives. You don't have to worry about my rhetoric. I have voted against spending on new programs time and time again. And unlike Senator Coates, who didn't, I have the nasty headlines to prove for it. And unlike others who said that they've cut taxes time and time again, when in fact they've raised taxes on businesses to the greatest level in the history of the state, according to the Indiana Chamber, I have consistently voted against not only raising taxes, but I have voted for tax cuts across the board, and will continue to do it. Thank you.
Mr. Coates.
Well, I don't have anybody to point to.
Amen.
Occupying the far right. I think the question was, what entitlements would you address? I didn't hear much answer to that. The three major entitlements that are driving us into extraordinary debt, have unfunded liabilities, are running this country into bankruptcy, and are the cause for our fiscal distress. One of the major causes for our Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Now, I don't agree with Richard when he said he would eliminate all three. What I do agree with is those of us that would say we want to restructure. We want to restructure those programs so that they stop losing money. People are going to have to take sacrifices. They're going to have to take cuts. We have a legacy for the future to our children to eliminate, to get those in balance and not pass that debt on. But that's going to require sacrifices by all of us if we're going to address that.
And Mr. Bates.
Doctor, I would just say, before I get into specifics, because there were very few specifics, but you know what? Folks, we're talking about the future, not about the past. We can have lawmakers, previous lawmakers, talk about what they did accomplish, what they didn't. They can stand here and throw stones at each other all day long. That's not going to fix the future, and that's what we need to be talking about. Now, let's get specific. First of all, the Department of Education. It's a state issue. Let's give those rights back to the state where they belong. That's the first way to do it. Now, second, Medicaid and Medicare do need to be reformed. The chairman of my campaign committee is John Ford. He's chairman of the board of Reed Hospital in Richmond, Indiana. He understands better than anyone I know the challenges facing us in Medicare and Medicaid. So I would start by eliminating the Department of Education, but then overhauling Medicare and Medicaid. And let's talk about the future. Let's not get stuck in the past.
Thank you very much. All right, those are two questions that the audience wanted. Here's one from
Doctor.
Oh, yes. Let me tell you about the rebuttal. While we use the term rebuttal, it's really he wants to provide more information. Provide more information for us.
Dan, I disagree. I believe I was very clear.
Well, I didn't say you weren't clear.
That I'm cutting all entitlements. Just the word entitlement. The federal government is not in a position to provide entitlements. There's no such thing as an entitlement, and yet we find ourselves in that position. We will look at everything across the board. You know, John, you're saying that there's this. You were for it or against it. Whatever it is you're saying, whatever it is that you've done did not work. We still find ourselves in a position today that we literally have a debt that my grandchildren will never be able to repay. It's time for bold, practical action. We must stand firmly. We will look at all entitlements across the board, and we will cut them.
John, you'd like to provide some more information?
Sure would. Not only was I not, again, for us for it, but once again, rhetoric as opposed to a record. In 2003, when President Bush wanted to create Medicare Part D, prescription drug payment, there were 24 of us in the House of Representatives that voted against it. I have a record of voting against new entitlement programs. And so you don't have to ask what I'm going to do with regard to limiting the size and scope of the federal government. I have the record that reflects a past and a history of rejecting new programs that have added to the debt.
Anyone else like to add information?